You spent 10 years in the kind of PR and comms part of Williams, right?
Yes, 10, 8, 9.
And was that very much working through the ranks? It's a long time. 10 years is a very long time, like in many ways, in many people's careers. But for you, were you just enjoying that process at that time in your career?
Loved it.
Just going through the motions. It was the job.
I would go back and be a press officer now. Really? I'd go back and do anything at Williams now, and I'd sweep the floors. It's just a wonderful place to be. But you're right. I mean, I made no progress, I think, because I don't know why I didn't, but it was quite stable, the marketing and comms team at Williams. I mean, really, that team had such low turnover of staff and people just didn't leave.
Right.
And I didn't have any ambitions either. It wasn't like I thought to myself, I really want to be head of comms one day. Loved what I was doing, I mean, I never even asked for a pay rise when I was a press officer. I was promoted to a press officer role. So it was Liam, myself, and a lady called Sylvia, who was the race weekend press officer. And I was just a press officer. And I held that role until Liam left in 2010, I think it was. Right. But Liam and I worked brilliantly together. I loved my job. I think I started my job there on about 26k and I was on that for years and years and it never even crossed my mind. I think I asked for a pay rise once. Liam said no. I was like, all right then. I just got on with it, Yeah. I don't know whether it makes me sound really unambitious, but I just loved what I was doing. And it was only whenever people came to me asking me to step up into bigger roles that I ended up with the promotions. I never actively went and sought them.
Yeah, it's obviously, like I say, 10 years is a long time, but I think sometimes that's what we all need in a bit of a career, is just enjoying it, as opposed to always trying to go to the next thing. Even for you, where people would have assumed, you were trying to work your way up to where you eventually got to. Sometimes you just need that time to spend it and enjoy being young, enjoy life, enjoy being in a team. And if you're in a team with, low staff turnover, maybe that's the right place to be at the time.
Yeah. It was also, I think, as well, Formula One is one of those industries that no 2 days are the same. Yeah. And I think that's what keeps it fresh, where you don't feel that you have to, or you want to go out and find something else. Yeah. I think there was one time where I thought, I need to leave. I'm going to go off and do something else. I've got to go and just get out of Williams, really. Interesting. When was that? I think it was like 2007, 2008. I thought I'd quite like to go and be a press officer in football. That sounds like quite a good gig. And so I kind of kept my eye out for press officer roles in football. And one came up at the Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I was like, that's for me. Not really doing the homework and understanding that Wolverhampton was 2 hours from Oxford, 2 hours from everyone I knew, my family, the whole thing. I was like, maybe I should do this. And my mum was quite supportive. She said, maybe it's time for you to leave, go and do something else. So I went, I knew nothing about football. I did so much research.
You actually went?
Homework. Oh my God, I had an interview.
Really?
Yes. I went up there, I stayed over the night before because it was such a long journey up, and I had an interview the first thing the next day. I've never known more about football in my life and this team. And I had my interview and I thought it went quite well, but I never got the job.
Is it funny how if you got that job, what would have happened?
Yeah. So I think about that quite a lot. I mean, I could be living in Wolverhampton now. I mean, who knows? I could be married to a football player.
Who knows?
It's unlikely. And I love my husband, P.S. And I wouldn't change that for the world. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have, if I had been given that job. And I'm a really big believer in fate. I think that life took me on the path that God gives you what He wants for you.
Yeah. It is funny, isn't it? When you think if that had gone a different way. After not getting it, you then just stuck with the team. Did you kind of take that as, stay with Williams for a bit longer then? Or did you keep on looking for other stuff?
I don't think I don't think I did. I think I just kind of got my head down. I think I was probably quite bruised from that experience. Prior to getting, I had applied for quite a few jobs in my time, and the knockbacks, I understand, they're not nice. No one likes them. It's like, well, I have got a great job and I love my job, so I'll just stay here, I think. And then quite soon after that was when the promotion started coming and, snowballed.
Yeah. because those promotions led into the investor relations commercial side of things. And that was for a short period of time before you eventually went into team principal role. But that period, can you explain that role in a bit of detail for me to understand what it was? Was it as simple as, I mean, investor relations is one thing, but at this point, half the company was listed and there was lots of things happening. What made you want to go into that area of the business?
Well, I didn't. I was just asked to. And I always just did what I was asked. That was the same for the DTP role. It was I was asked to do it. So, right, then I'll do it.
Exactly.
And I'm quite obedient. I'll kind of do what I'm asked. That's how I've been raised. So the investor relations role came because, as you say, Williams decided that we were going to put 20% of the business on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. And inevitably, when you do that, you've got shareholders and you need someone to look after them. And I think IR inevitably always sits around the communications zone anyway. So it was a natural fit. At the time, Toto Wolff was actually an executive director of Williams and a minor shareholder. Adam Parr, a gentleman named Adam Parr, was our CEO. And together they felt that putting a percentage of the team onto the making it public was a good idea.
Because Toto had like a finance background and everything, right?
Exactly.
Prior to Formula One life.
Finance and racing, DTM, German touring car, and wanted obviously to come into Formula One and came in through Williams. And so we went through this process of listing. And then obviously subsequent to the listing, we had to manage the shareholders. And so Adam asked me to be head of investor relations. We listed at the price we wanted to. But then the shareholding really for us, in the long term just wasn't what we needed. You don't want to be a public company when you're a Formula One team. There is a reason why no motorsport team had ever done so before and no motorsport team has ever done so afterwards. And won't probably in future. And, the first thing that the new owners of Williams did was delist the business. And in fact, for the last 3-4 years of my time running the team, it was something that we wanted to do, but it was just not something that we were able to do at the time for a variety of reasons.
Of course. What was your relationship like with your dad at that point, where you're in a pretty significant role now as head of comms and all those sorts of things? How did the dynamic change from 10 years prior, him maybe not wanting you in the team?
I'd always worked really closely with my dad. So my dad's office was on the second floor, marketing was on the second floor. And my dad's thing was commercial marketing. That was his world. Patrick Head, his partner, was technical and engineering. And my dad's kind of world was the second floor. So, and obviously as his press officer, I worked with him all day long. And, he was my dad and I had an amazing relationship with him and I spent a lot of time in his office and having chats and stuff. And so when I stepped up and kind of progressed through the investor relations and eventually sitting on the board as director of marketing and comms in 2012, I just got to spend more time with him. And I think he really enjoyed that. I think having a family member involved in that side of the business, I think gave him a sense of comfort and security. Not that anything was untoward, but I think he just enjoyed me being in that role. As I said, we had a great relationship and we loved spending time with each other. And that was the way, our shared passion was Williams. So we just enjoyed working together in that sense. So things didn't change. I think it just brought us even closer together. And he could see, the impact that I was having, and particularly from a commercial perspective, the budget for the team was, the most important thing that played on my dad's mind. And his daughter was now responsible for bringing in, anywhere between, and the minimum I needed to bring in was 70 million in sponsorship a year, up to, anywhere beyond that was an added bonus. So him seeing that I could fulfill that function for him, I think gave him confidence in my abilities and trust in my abilities. And then, we carried on from there.
Because there's many hard parts of running a Formula One team, but the role you're doing is probably one of the hardest in some ways, because it's relationships, it's branding, it's positioning, it's speaking to corporates, it's not always speaking to, racing people, etc. It's super varied. It must be a big challenge. What was there a point there where you were starting to think about the future when you were in that role? It seems like a very hectic time. It feels like a very time of lots going on and you having more day-to-day challenges, if you will. But was there ever a time where you were starting to think about the next step?
I was put on the board at the same time.
Right.
Which
What did that really look like in terms? Obviously, there's standardized board, but what did that really look like from a day-to-day responsibility?
Not a lot, because it was just my day-to-day was still trying to bring in the money and look after partners, run comms and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't really change. It was attendance at the obligatory board meetings once a month, which was fascinating, and they gave me a real insight, because at that time obviously we were a PLC board, we had non-exec directors, my dad still had a seat on the board as well, and so it was a really fascinating way to see that kind of administrative side of how the business was operating that I hadn't been exposed to before. But on a day-to-day I was still doing the work that I needed to do, and that was really focused on bringing the money in for the team. A lot of my time was spent managing that, and I didn't really think about what are the next step here, what's happening. As one of the reasons why I was put on the board is because I was going to become the family representative.
Oh, right.
So my dad was naturally stepping away.
Yep.
And that step away happened during 2012, after maybe 6 months of me being on the board. After that, my father no longer attended board meetings. I think there was a kind of transition period.
Sure.
And then he stepped away, and then I became that family representative. And then over the winter of 2012, the DTP role started to be discussed.
Got you.